Hello Guardian, ISO here. This is the second part of the Destiny Rundown video series I've been going, where we just detail basically the entire history of the Destiny franchise, the big points at least. In the first video, we talked about the darkness and the light, we talked about the Hive, we talked about the Fallen, we talked about humanity's golden age, and that's about as far as we got. So today, we're going to be starting off with the collapse. Alright, so give or take about 500 years ago, that's when the collapse began. Halfway through terraforming Io, one of the moons of Jupiter, the Traveler stopped suddenly and came straight to Earth. The darkness was detected at the edge of the Sol system, and the enemies of the Traveler acted very quickly. The Vex completely stormed Mercury, transforming the entire planet into a massive organic supercomputer. Two of the sons of Oryx, Nokris and Crota, also staked their claim. Crota was a brilliant commander and warrior, so he constructed a massive castle on the surface of the moon, with tunnels stretching throughout its crust, going deep. This castle was called the Scarlet Keep. Nokris used ancient magic of the darkness to bring back Xol, one of the original 5 Hive worm gods. Nokris and his newfound god slave set their sights on Mars and attacked Rasputin directly. But they and the rest of the Hive on Mars were defeated when Rasputin encased them all in ice. Even though multiple instances of Rasputin's programming exists on Mars and on Earth, his main terminal now sleeps under the ice of Mars. So, not even Rasputin was a match for the darkness. Everyone ran. Humanity hopped on more of those Exodus ships they constructed, and completely left the Sol system, fleeing the coming darkness. But something strange happened. The Traveler chose to stay, for the first time ever. Instead of running and continuing to flee from the darkness, it used the last of its light to push back against the darkness, keeping it at bay. Only a fraction of the Sol system's human population stayed, but it was already in ruins. When the Traveler pushed back the darkness like this, a singularity was created, a ray of light washing across the entire system against darkness. Remember this, because it'll be important later. With its dying breath, the Traveler created the Ghosts, small machines and fragments of its light. Each ghost has its own personality and consciousness. Some even take names and genders. But the Ghosts knew that they had one charge: to seek out the dead that were capable of wielding the light of the Traveler for the good of humanity. Through the power of the light, the Ghosts would bond with a dead person, bringing them back to life. These people were called Risen. Even more unfortunate, the speakers' numbers began to dwindle. When the Traveler went dormant, so too did their ability to hear it. But the Dark Age had already begun. The Dark Age of Humanity. In the post-apocalyptic Sol system, the only rule was survival. The Risen that had been created by the Ghosts didn't really know what to do with their newfound immortality. They were stronger and faster than normal people, and their ghosts could return them to life through the Traveler's light in the event of their demise. However, when they're reborn as Risen, their slate is wiped clean. They have no memory of who they were in their previous life before becoming a Risen. As is often the case, this sort of power led to evil acts. These people called themselves warlords, violent Risen who would take over settlements and hold power through fear. But something new was arriving in the system. Specifically on Earth, the Fallen. They were desperate for survival, and also extremely bitter of humans for stealing their great machine from them. The alien pirates began to raid, plunder, and scavenge on Earth. To make things worse, another alien faction reared its ugly head. The Cabal forced their way into the Sol system and thrust down their flag on Mars. This warmongering military empire expands their borders and dominates planets. Any species they come across are either destroyed or integrated into their ranks. While the Cabal's arrival wasn't good news at all, they seemed satisfied with Mars, so they left the other planets alone for now. About 100 years of turmoil and death went by, before a certain group of Risen came together. They chose to rise above the oppression and fight for peace, opposing the Reaver tactics of other warlords. so they called themselves the Iron Lords. From their mountain base atop Fellwinter Peak, they were able to initiate real change. They guided and protected the people, bringing them together for the start of actual civilization, more than just splintered townships of fearful people. But the Iron Lords went too far. While poking around with some of Rasputin's hidden bunkers, the AI woke up and slaughtered nearly all of the Iron Lords using his SIVA nanotechnology. What was once a benevolent matter replication tech had been twisted into a highly infectious inorganic virus. We now know that Fellwinter was the reason for this massacre. If you want more information about these events, I have an entire reading of The Liar, which is a lore book that goes over Fellwinter joining the Iron Lords and ultimately leading to their downfall. But it's time to change subjects. And when I say change subjects, I mean like, we're not on Earth anymore. So now we're going to be talking about the Awoken. So remember that singularity I mentioned that I said was going to be important? This is the important part. When that shockwave went through and rocked the entire galaxy, one of the fleeing Exodus ships was caught in its wake, and so a pocket universe was formed, like a bubble under a piece of protective plastic, unable to be displaced in any direction. The colonists inside were reformed and reborn as immortal beings inside this universe. They called themselves the Awoken. Time moved differently inside their universe, and while they prospered for thousands of years, only mere centuries had progressed outside. So, a couple hundred years after the events of the Iron Lords, the Awoken had an ideological split. Seeing the fractured remains of humanity in the Dark Age, some Awoken chose to share their technological advancements to aid. Some Awoken even started to live on Earth. However, the other group wished to be rid of humanity, so instead, they hid themselves away. They found the asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars, rediscovering it and naming it the Reef. This belt destroyed too many fleeing ships, so the Reef exists as a collection of small moons and shipwrecks drifting through space amongst many, many rocks. They named a ruler, Queen Mara Sov. She sent her brother, Uldren Sov, to survey the Sol system, and he returned with something that would become their doom, a baby Ahamkara named Riven. A long, long time ago when the light was creating life, one of the species it created was called the Ahamkara. These powerful shape-shifting creatures were nicknamed Wish Dragons because of their paracausal ability to grant wishes. When they activated this power, they transform reality to fit the desires of the Wisher. The old reality is then devoured by the Ahamkara, which is how they sustain themselves. With Riven's aid, Queen Marasov constructed a hidden city in the Reef, calling it the Dreaming City. This ethereal wonderscape was flush with dazzling architecture, exotic flora, and many secrets. It would be the safe haven of the Awoken people. So, a lot of stuff has been happening, and even though the Dark Age has been going on for about 400 years, a new settlement, originally founded by the Iron Lords, is starting to grow right under the Traveler. This small collection of tents will eventually become what we now know as the Last City. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. This is where we'll be stopping today, and in the Destiny Rundown Part 3, we'll be talking about the City Age. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and remember that the best way to let me know you enjoy my content is to leave a like on the video or a comment down below. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed the video.